The first thing I'm gonna make is chicken noodle soup. I am shredding this entire chicken. The wings, the thighs, the breast, but I'm not using the skin, especially like in soups and stews. It makes it really fatty and there's like a film that forms. What I usually do is just eat it as I go. I'm gonna put 1.5 cups in this bowl for my chicken noodle soup. Now I'm gonna chop up my veggies. I have 1 stalk of celery and I'm gonna cut up this entire onion. That's pretty fine. Roughly chop some parsley. If you use dried, you want to use a lot less. Dried herbs are much stronger than fresh. Head over to the stove and get this baby started. I'm gonna add a little olive oil to get my onions and celery started. Add a little salt to help draw some of that water out of it. I'm cooking my onions down until it becomes a little translucent, a little soft. So the onions are nice and translucent. A little garlic powder, some onion powder, a little bit of the Italian seasoning. It has basil, parsley, oregano. Last but not least, the chicken bouillon. I'm gonna use just about a tablespoon. Because I am not using a chicken stock or a chicken broth, I gotta break this down with some water. I'm using 5 cups of water. I'm basically creating my own broth. So my water and onions and everything has come to a boil. Now I'm gonna add that shredded chicken. So that's about 1.5 cups. I'm gonna also add my parsley now. Frozen peas and carrots, they get used in my house. They come in handy. This is a 16-ounce bag, so leave about that much in there. Add 1 cup of my egg noodles. Okay, that's about 1 cup. Bring it back to a boil and just cook it until the noodles get soft and they're al dente. And talk about easy and simple and inexpensive.
I'm just going to add in some veggies, okay? But first, just get a little bit of olive oil down. All right, into my pan here to sweat everything out. The jalapenos and my onions I'm about to get in with some salt.
Salt.
And then I like to hit it with lots of black pepper. And the onions, I like to kind of not chop them down. I love how they can kind of, you know, be a texture moment in the soup, and you pull up your spoon and there's little pieces of onion hanging off the side, you know. So think about that when you slice them down. And then get in a little bit of cumin. Let all of these spices bloom.
Smoked paprika?
You already know, this is my hot Hungarian paprika.
I haven't seen it in a while.
It has been in the pantry. Speaking of the pantry, it's a good time at the start of the year to look through your pantry, smell all of your spices. If they don't smell like what they should smell like, just get rid of them. It's gonna get nice and tender. To this, I would add the can of diced tomatoes and green chilies that is always in my pantry for a good nacho dip. Yeah,
That's so
it's all in the
smart.
same can.
So smart.
Yeah, and sometimes you can get just the green chilies, but I like the tomatoes and the green chilies together.
That's like you added salsa to your chili once. Remember you made that?
That's right.
It's a great idea.
And then, GZ, this luscious stock. Just pour that right over the top.
That's at least, what, 2.5 boxes of stock?
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
And then just shut up the pot, you know?
At least 2 boxes.
All right, so after that is all in there, you're gonna cover it up. You're gonna cook it for about 15 to 20 minutes or so, just to kind of make everything marry. And then it's gonna come out looking like this, and then we're not done yet. To that, you just add in some rotisserie chicken. Obviously, you can buy shredded chicken now in the grocery store, or your rotisserie chicken and do the work yourself. But we're saving money here, so.
I wonder if we did how much this would cost per person. I probably like
very inexpensive, I would have to say. So the chicken, just so you know, I put that in at the last minute, maybe just 5 minutes before you serve. It's already cooked. I don't want to cook it super long and dry it out. I just want to rehydrate it and bring it into the game. So let me make a little bowl.
game time.
It's game time.
It's game time.
Giddy up.
This is actually game time.
Giddy
food.
up.
Giddy up. That's what you say when
know?
you ride a horsey. I mean, you got to have some toppings for that.
You
It's all
do.
about.
Very simple. Okay, now this is what I've also found as I'm trying to get back into my jeans, is the smaller you slice things up, the more plentiful they feel. So just get that on there.
We could have used some of that leftover green taqueria style sauce too.
Oh, yeah. that's gotta
Actually,
be
really
served with-
could. That would be delicious.
Kerplunk.
And then, oh, here we go, a spoon. And then this would be, and kind of looks like sour cream, but I've been
What is it?
replacing that in my kitchen with a little Greek yogurt,
Oh,
whole fat,
risotto.
right over the
Did
top.
you fry those strips?
Yeah,
Sonny?
those are fried, 350 with some oil. You can do canola. I usually do like a shallow fry too. Don't worry about deep frying it. Just an inch in your pan
Jeff, that's for Jeff.
and give it a
Oh,
go.
that's for me.
Here, pass that hot sauce down if you
Hot
want
sauce,
any.
there you go.
Do you want hot sauce?
Yeah, I'll have some hot sauce, and I'd love a spoon, and I can do this old-timey style.
Lisa, can I have some more tortillas too?
Yeah,
Calm
wow,
down.
2 spoons. I'm going in there, Sonny. I got some onion
Go in.
hangover.
Free.
Simple. You've got a good stock to start with, so you
I
don't
mean-
really have to go hard in the paint, with the flavor.
The foundation is a good stock, and it's soup. It's soup consistency, but it tastes thick on the palate. You know what I mean? Because it's so luscious. Then you get the little crispy bits on top from those strips of tortilla. The Greek yogurt brings the tang like a crema or sour cream would.
I love crema.
And the star of the show is that perfectly reinvigorated chicken. That is just perfect. Dab of hot sauce per spoon. And you got yourself meal number 2 from chicken number 1.
So I'm gonna cook the mushrooms first, and I'm gonna crank the heat up to high. I started with a little bit of olive oil, and I added a mix of sliced white mushrooms and sliced cremini mushrooms. And I'll add some salt and let them start to cook. It's gonna take 5 minutes to get these nice and brown. Okay, it's looking good. Look, Alex, I know it's hard to see over there, but I got these mushrooms going. They're starting to get kind of brown around the edges. So I'm gonna turn the heat to medium so things don't get too crazy too fast. And I'm gonna add minced garlic and minced thyme. This soup has such amazing flavor. I absolutely love it. So I'm gonna get the garlic going, and then I have to smell it. Italian seasoning. A little more salt, why not? And then I want to make this a creamy base. So I'm going to sprinkle just a couple of tablespoons of flour. I just kind of want to add enough to help the thickening process along without it getting too crazy. And I'm telling you what, this is the day of broth. Lots of liquid. Okay, now I need to stir this until it starts to bubble and thicken up. Give me another 3 minutes. Okay, I can tell it's kind of starting to simmer around the sides. So this is a good time to add lasagna. Now, a lot of times when I make regular lasagna soup, I will boil the lasagna noodles separately, break them up, boil them, add them to the pot. I'm gonna use par-boiled lasagna sheets, which these are almost done, so you can actually build lasagna with these without cooking them ahead of time. So they're no-cook noodles. And I'm just gonna break them into chunks. And the great thing about adding them to soup is they just take a couple of minutes to soften and become soft pasta noodles. Oh, it's looking so good already. So it's a good time to season with salt and pepper. Yum, yum. And then it's kind of a white / creamy lasagna soup. So while it comes to a boil, I'm gonna add some cream. And this is a personal preference. You can add as little or as much cream as you want. We can't forget the spinach. Just gonna go right in with it. And the thing about spinach is it takes a lot because it shrinks, so don't be alarmed at the amount of spinach I just added. All right, with that, this soup is done. So I'm gonna show you what it looks like, all served up, nice and piping hot. You would probably not make this soup in the middle of summer. Look how just gorgeous and rich and magical it is. Here is how I like to finish it. Little dollops of ricotta, which kind of finishes off the lasagna vibe of this soup. You can kind of do little globs here and there. And then I'll just use the end of the spoon. Pesto out of the jar. This looks good. I'm not even gonna pick it up because it's too hot, but I have to taste so I can tell you guys what it's all about. Oh gosh, that's magical.
To get started, I add some flour and salt in my food processor. Then for my wet ingredients, I have water, 2 eggs, and some neutral oil. Okay, so typically when you think of soup at a deli, your mind goes to matzo ball soup, which is totally fair because matzo ball soup is awesome. But what's unfair is that Kreplach is always the underdog. And I don't want them to be the underdog anymore because they are delicious. Okay, I'm gonna mix all this together, and with the mixer running, I'll add the wet ingredients. And it comes together just like that. I know it's ready when it's slightly sticky. I'll gather it into a ball. I'll wrap this up and let it sit at room temperature for a few minutes just while I make the filling. I've got a drizzle of olive oil heating in my skillet, and I'm gonna add a chopped onion. And I wanna give this onion a good few minutes to allow that natural sweetness to emerge. Let a pinch of salt. I'll stir this around and just let it hang out while I get my chicken ready. I've got some pulled cooked chicken here, and I'm gonna chop it into little pieces. And this is a mixture of light and dark meat. My chicken is finely chopped. I'll add it right into the skillet with my onions. I'll get some fresh, grassy dill in there and lemon zest to make the flavors come alive. Then a few passes of nutmeg. Just when you thought chicken soup could not get any cozier, nutmeg comes in and does the job. A pinch of salt and pepper, and that's it. I'll set this aside to cool slightly while I prep the veggies for my soup. Okay, I've got a carrot, a parsnip, and celery sauteing in my pot. I'll pour in about 6 cups of chicken stock, homemade or store-bought. I'll add a tablespoon of kosher salt now. It'll likely need a little more salt later, but this is enough to get it going. I'll let this simmer while I form my dumplings. I've got a flour sheet tray and a rolling pin. And my dough is well rested by now. Okay, I'm gonna divide my dough into 12 pieces. To form my dumplings, I'll take a piece of dough and I'm gonna nudge it into a circle, which will help me roll it out more evenly. I'll dust my counter with a little flour and then I'll roll out the dough. This dough circle looks good. It's about 4.5 to 5 inches in diameter. And then I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons of my filling to the center. This part is so satisfying to make. I'll pinch the edges together to seal. And I totally just went on autopilot and pleated these like a soup dumpling. Just like that, I'll place these seam side down onto my sheet tray and keep on forming these cute little packages. My Kreplach looks so happy. They just want to spread joy in the world. I've got a little filling left over that I'm gonna dump right into the soup. It'll add more goodness. And now I'll simmer these guys for about 12 minutes until the dough is tender. I'll finish the soup with a little lemon juice for a pop of acidity and some freshly chopped dill. I'll taste it. Oh yeah, pure nostalgia.
Jeezy, how are you going to make creamy soup healthy, please?
Creamy soup, yes, but creamy soup without the cream.
What?
It's my mushroom soup without cream. I'm gonna show you.
It's a delectable title of that recipe.
It is what it is. Are you ready? We're gonna use cremini mushrooms. Everybody's seen these, right? These are good. They're relatively inexpensive. You can use white mushrooms, button mushrooms, cremini mushrooms, anything meaty. I wouldn't use shiitakes for these. They're kind of woody, but anything fat and meaty like this. They're not
Baby
expensive.
Bellas?
What?
Baby Bellas?
You can, but something like this that is sort of heavy and big and fat like that. And we're just gonna slice them up.
You know there's a lineage of mushrooms, right? So you got the Baby Bellas.
Yes.
They grow up to become teenagers as creminis.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
those creminis become portobellas. They're all the
Yep.
same. It just gets bigger
Oh, I
and
never
older.
knew that. I knew baby bellas are interchangeable with they're the
then
same as
I thought
cremini,
they were
right?
the same.
Yeah.
And you can use Paris mushrooms, which are the white ones, which are the cheapest of all of them. You have the name Paris in them.
The white button.
Yeah,
right?
the white buttons. Okay, so we're gonna get some olive oil. We're gonna put everything in here. The mushroom, sliced onion, white onion, very finely sliced.
Are you guys particular about how you clean your mushrooms?
Yeah,
I never clean them.
I'll tell you how I clean them.
They're covered in dirt.
I don't know.
No,
Dirt's good for you. From the dirt, you shall return.
Well, I'll tell you what we do in the restaurant. We take them and we take a damp towel,
Yeah.
one by one, and we wipe them. If you submerge them in water,
Soak it up.
guess what?
Yeah.
You have a sponge, and it's really not good. And most of them are really clean, so that's a tip for you. Okay, so what I'd like to do is just put these over a very medium-high heat, and you gotta leave these alone. Medium-high to start, and then medium. Pepper, no salt. Why is that, Jeff?
Because it leaches out the moisture and it prohibits caramelization.
Or the Maillard effect. So if you put salt, it's going to actually, in some cases, if you're making a bolognese, you want the salt, but in this case, you don't. So you want the liquid to stay inside the mushroom, and it won't brown as good. So you see this nice brownage here? See that? There's no salt in there yet, okay?
That's the key.
That takes time. Then we're going to add some salt
Okay.
and some pepper. Okay, so to this, at this stage, next, you can use sherry, you can use vermouth. I'm using vermouth. And the secret to making it creamy is one of two things. A little bit of fresh breadcrumb,
Oh.
fresh thyme. And we're gonna let that cook. And then we're gonna add, oh God, I can tell you, when sherry hits or vermouth hits that, the smell is
Mushrooms
incredible.
and that, such a
Yep.
match made in heaven.
And then we're gonna add chicken stock, beef stock. I like more vegetable stock. I like chicken stock unsalted, all right?
Vegetable
Low
stock if
sodium.
you wanted to make it vegetarian.
You can.
And you can buy mushroom stock now, too.
Yes, you can. We'll let that simmer for another 20 minutes, and then we have this. This is basically your base. So it looks like mushroom stock, basically.
Yeah,
It
I
doesn't
don't
look
see
anything
anything creamy yet.
Relax.
Wait.
It's gonna happen.
Well, do it, dude. You're sitting
The
here.
blender.
The magic of a blender.
GZ with no drippage.
No drippage.
Iron chef.
I did see one little bit drip. I'm not going
Okay.
to call him out, but I did see it. I see
One
it
of the things
still.
I love to use when I'm making something fresh and roasted, I need to have sort of a balance, and I love acid, so a little bit of sherry wine vinegar
At the end.
Right.
into this, and then we're gonna blend it. Be very careful at this point because it's hot. If you put this on high, it's gonna go everywhere, so just real low to start, all right? And then we're gonna just turn it up.
You had like one piece
looks
of
like
bread
a
in there?
quarter of
Not a lot, you
cup,
don't need a
right?
lot.
You gonna drizzle?
I'm gonna drizzle. Guess what I'm gonna drizzle inside there?
EVOO.
Extra virgin olive
What's up,
oil.
Rachel?
One of the things that makes it really creamy. Now we're gonna taste it.
Be careful, it's still running.
It is still running, it's okay.
Look at this guy, living on the edge. Love it.
You know, that's pretty good.
Oh, go GZ.
Right.
So we need our, it's almost thick. You see, it's almost creamy right now. Just got a little olive oil, not too much.
Roll. Okay.
How much oil did you just put in there, Geoffrey?
You know,
Okay.
a healthy amount.
So I just want to show you the
It's the good fat.
consistency. Tell me this looks like, it doesn't
Look
look
at
like it
that.
has cream in it.
Wow, it looks like a chowder.
So, okay. You ready to taste? So what I have here is I've made a little bit of a tahini herb dressing,
look
which I'm
at
going to
you.
show you later how to make.
Represent, GZ.
It's my people.
Yeah, you always represent. I like that.
Okay. So we're going to put a little of this dressing on top.
Okay, GZ,
Can I get mine in a bread bowl, please?
Just a tahini drizzle, and then some of my favorite things are shallots that are fried.
Ooh, fried shallots.
You can
Get
buy
those in the
those
can.
now.
Yeah, they're
Yes,
addictive.
Really?
Yeah.
And some fresh dill. There you go. Creamless mushroom soup.
Bring it, GZ.
Here, let
You
me
better
give you
keep making bowls of that. Jeff and I want to try it.
Now, normally at home, I would go and find a bubble tea straw.
Yeah, I was going to say, I could see
And I
that.
would make this happen. I love a soup like this. You put in an insulated cup and take it to work with you.
Oh, look at that plating, Jeffers.
First of all, this is the most well-balanced soup I've had in a very long time. And by balanced, I mean The sherry that you added at the end. You know, this is a mushroom, so it's from the earth. You need to bring something to it that's gonna bring it up a little bit out of the dirt. But what really works this is that tahini, that sesame seed sauce that you made. It's like the umami of your people, you know what I'm saying? And then the dill comes through with that bright note at the end as well with the sherry. This is just...
This is awesome.
Can I do this?
Yes, you can. Look at this. It's
like
cheap,
if I
too.
try the recipe and I actually
This is
make
not
it
expensive.
Can we talk about Salmorejo soup? There are three things I love about it. First, it's like gazpacho, but a little more modern. The second thing is that you make the entire thing in a blender or a food processor. It's that easy. And the third thing is I serve it with toppings, so it's a little like an ice cream sundae. Let's go make some Salmorejo soup. When my friend Miguel Flores Viana told me about Salmorejo, I'd never even heard of it. I thought, now that sounds like something I'd like to make. So it's basically pureed soup, and it's thickened with bread, and lots of flavors like gazpacho. So I'm starting with 2 pounds of tomatoes. Now, there aren't a lot of ingredients in this dish, so you really want to start with good ingredients. These are from a farm. Just choose the best ripe tomatoes you can find. They'll really make a difference. So I'm just throwing all of the ingredients into the food processor, or you can use a blender, and then I'm just going to puree them all together. I love this for entertaining because actually it's even better if you make it a little in advance and leave it in the refrigerator and all the flavors blend together. And it's so refreshing in the summer. Just when the tomatoes are ripest is when it tastes the best. You need a big food processor for this. So that's the tomatoes. Now I'm just going to add some bread, and it's going to thicken it a little bit. So just 1 big slice of bread. It's about 2.5 ounces. Just chop that up too. Since it's all going to be pureed, it doesn't matter how you cut it. Just pile that in. Whoa, this is a big one. Okay, and then 1/2 cup of chopped red onion. Give it a little heat. And then 1 diced red pepper. I'm using a Holland bell pepper. A little sweetness. Is this all going to fit in? I think it is. And 4 cloves of garlic. And you don't even have to cut them up because it's going to get pureed. Okay, I'm just going to puree this all together. I'll show you what happens. Is there an easier dish to make? Whoa! Just want to make sure everything's pureed. The garlic and the red onion, peppers, just until you can't see very many pieces in it. Okay, now I'm going to pour it into a bowl. I'm going to add olive oil and vinegar, seasonings. Just pour it right in here. Look how great this looks. Gorgeous. Okay. I just add a little bit of tomato puree, maybe about 1/4 cup, just to sort of enhance the rich flavor. 3 tablespoons of sherry wine vinegar. Just give it a little edge. And 3/4 cup of olive oil. It's a lot of olive oil, so use good olive oil. It's really like a salad, like a vinaigrette and a salad. Okay. I'm just going to whisk this in, just like that. It's going to stay whisked in. It smells great. This is a great first course for a summer dinner. Just light and refreshing, chilled. And then I'll show you, I like to serve it with all kinds of toppings. Just looks like summer, doesn't it? Okay, now I just have to season it. So I'm going to put in 2 teaspoons of salt. Really depends on the tomatoes. So season it and then taste it. It's the only way to know. But that's true with everything. 1 teaspoon of pepper, just whisk it together. Just give it a taste. This is the good part of cooking. You have to taste everything. That's really good. Needs a little more salt. But then I think everything needs more salt. Okay, now I'm going to chill this for a couple of hours, and it'll get nice and cold. All the flavors will blend. In the meantime, I think I'll take a walk in the garden. So I need some fresh basil for my Salmorejo. You think I have enough basil here? That's like crazy basil. But good. Oh, the sounds of summer. Little police action in East Hampton. Oh, you know what would be nice? I have yellow tomatoes over there. I think maybe I'll put them on. Since it's a tomato soup, it'd be nice to have some contrasting tomato thing. So just a couple of them. The plant doesn't look so good, but the tomatoes are delicious. Let's see, 4, maybe 5 of them. I love these little pear tomatoes. Okay, I've got everything I need. Okay, that's 2 hours, and the Salmorejo's really chilled. And if you're OCD like me, I chilled the bowl too, so everything stays really cold. I'll show you how I serve it. Just put some Salmorejo in the bowl. Doesn't this look good? It's so thick, just so flavorful. And then I'm gonna do lots of toppings on top. So the first thing I'm gonna do is put croutons on, because I like something crunchy with something smooth. And all I did was take a white country bread, did big cubes. You can use something from the freezer that you've got left over. Olive oil in the pan, really hot. Toast the croutons, salt and pepper, easy. And they're so good. I like that crunch with something that's smooth. Okay, and then I thought, tomatoes, basil, why not? I know Salmorejo is Spanish, but this will be multicultural Salmorejo. Little Italian influence, little julienne basil leaves. I mean, really, you can just decorate it with anything you like, but I just think this looks really pretty. Okay, and then since there are tomatoes in it, I thought I'd put some little yellow pear tomatoes that I had in my garden in it. I just want it to look delicious and fresh. You can put shrimp on it if you want to make a meal out of it. Just a couple little pear tomatoes. And then coarse salt, because of course everything has to have salt. And the last thing is a little drizzle of olive oil. It just gives it a richness, as though there's not enough olive oil in it already. But this looks really gorgeous. Now, how's that? That's like soup. That's an entire meal in one bowl. And it's so delicious. It's so much better when it sits for 2 hours, and that looks gorgeous. That's like crazy delicious. That is such a good soup.
I've got some ground beef that I've totally browned in a pot with onion and garlic. And I'm gonna add a bunch of tomato paste. I love the kind in a tube because it's just like toothpaste, basically. I'm gonna do probably 2 heaping tablespoons because this adds such richness in a pretty short amount of time. So I'm gonna turn the heat way up, and I wanna smush the tomato paste into the ground beef and try to kind of get it, can you see that, Paige? Get it on the bottom of the pan and just kind of get the flavors of that tomato paste going. Just kind of release the magic of the tomato paste. Okay, so I'm gonna add some salt and pepper because the ground beef really needs it. And I need a little exercise today. And then taco seasoning. You can't have tacos without some kind of taco seasoning. Okay, so this is a shortcut taco soup, which means you don't stop and let things cook a million times. So I'm gonna add a can of tomatoes with green chilies, which is a staple around these parts. And then fire roasted corn, and a can of black beans. And I am being very radical, and I am not draining the beans or the corn. And that's just fine because this is gonna cook so fast and over really high heat. So it's gonna be so good, and it already looks amazing. So then for the liquid, I'm just using vegetable stock. You can use beef stock, chicken stock, whatever stock. And then some hot sauce, your favorite, hot sauce of your choice. And then honestly, talk about a one-pot wonder right here. Now all I need to do is bring this to a boil and let it cook really fast for about 10 minutes. Look how violently it is bubbling away. And that's the secret when you're making a quick, shortcut soup. You wanna just really bring it to a boil and let it just violently cook for, 10, 15 minutes. Whatever you got available in your schedule. Okay, believe it or not, this soup is ready to serve. And the thing is, this soup is perfect as it is, so you could just serve it without any adornments. But as you know, I like fixins, otherwise known as fixings. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to finish this. Look, this bothers me though. I have to fix this before we continue.
Yeah, that was bothering me.
I can't deal with stuff like that. It keeps me awake at night. Okay, so here, Paige, I'll just put this here so you can really get a good look of the serving. You can also use ground turkey for this delicious soup, but it has such great texture. It's just a triumph, basically. So whatever you put on tacos, you can put on taco soup. So I'm gonna add some cheddar cheese and a good old dollop of sour cream, which I love because you can kind of get little bitty bits of sour cream as you eat it, and it just kind of mixes. Look at all that. I added a lot. And then watch this, this is super fun. Corn chips, ready? And then just sprinkle. Oh my gosh. And then cilantro, of course, just to give it a little freshness. I mean, that took approximately 45 seconds to make, that whole soup. At least it seems that fast. It's perfect for teenagers, college students, middle-aged moms. Not naming any names, but I love this soup. Watch this.
I always do the eye roll.
Okay. I like the crunch. Ooh, hot. This is good stuff.
4 tablespoons of butter. Melting it nice. Got my wooden spoon here. And we are going to add these onions. Okay, about a pound of onions in there, and this will cook down tremendously. To this, we're gonna add some salt, a little kosher salt, not too much, just to kind of lightly help start weeping it all out. But again, salt is the enemy of caramelization because it draws out all that moisture. And we wanna really focus on developing the sugars in these onions. And to help kind of expedite that process, give it a little extra, just a little, couple pinches of sugar with the onions.
Controversial.
All right. All right, next, we let this go for about 45 minutes. Could take longer, could take less. When you are caramelizing your onions, you do not want to disturb it too much, but if you open the pot and you see a lot of the, tasty bits, the fond sticking to the bottom of the pan, keep a little water, give it a little splash of water, and with your wooden spoon so we can get some. And people neglect that kind of what I like to call side fond or wall fond that creeps up the side of the pot. That's all flavor too. Don't neglect that. That's what we're looking for. Like that's the color.
Don't. You gotta let it go. People are they get anxious.
They get antsy.
Would you put that broth in there?
It's over.
Yeah.
There's zero more caramelization.
Yeah.
Once you start like deglazing too much through the process, it really does kind of slow down the process as well. And we want to embody the spirit of this soup, which is flavor and technique, and a little bit of sherry.
Do it.
Help deglaze it towards the end, right? And you scrape up all that stuff on the bottom. Turn up this a little bit. Now we can start adding, we got some warm stock here, and for some herbs, we got a bay leaf and a bundle or a sachet
Excuse me?
fresh thyme.
It's a bouquet garni.
A bouquet garni.
Voilà, c'est ça.
A sachet is in cheesecloth usually. So
Correct,
you are
Amanda.
correct that we get a little bit, but it's easier to pick out. It's not just for looking pretty. It's for function too.
Just like you, Jeff.
Very nice. Nobody's like, that guy's pretty. Nobody said that about me.
Jokes.
Even with the neckerchief. So again, we want to kind of cook out that alcohol, let this intensify, let all those
Smell it.
onions soak up that sherry. Next, some warm beef stock. Look at that. Boom.
Same thing.
Right? I should have poured it from the side. Like,
Yeah,
I
like
was
the
getting
water-
some ice water at the saloon. So we're gonna let this come up to a simmer. Look how simple this is, right?
Simple.
It's all time and technique and cutting the onions right, and just putting enough of everything, not too much of everything in there. And what we're left with after about another 30, 40 minutes is the base of a great French onion soup. What we wanna do
gorgeous.
is fish out,
Le bouquet garni.
into the bowl. All right, this is ready to go. Katie, I will bring the horse to the water, if you will.
Okay.
And our toasts are a little done, a little
Toasted.
crostini there. I like to give a little kind of centrifugal stir here so I can scoop up and get an even ratio of broth to onion. I think the onions are the true star of this, but man, we want to structurally build this, so you might need a little more in there. These are big old crocks, but you need the handle on here.
Yeah.
You can use a ramekin at home. You can use like an oven-safe bowl. Or I'm sure you can find these online.
It's kind of like a
very-
Moscow Mule. You need the vessel.
You need the vessel,
Yeah,
right?
just to
It's one
feel
of those
like you're
things
doing
that
it.
like
Yeah.
you find on sale, and when you find it, buy it.
Yep.
Even if you're not planning on making the French onion soup right away, just buy it.
There's also a certain.
I also put like cheese sauces in there. Like
Yeah.
I do nacho sauce, like individual nacho sauce. You
Oh,
can
that's a good
reuse
idea.
those French
I think there's a
onion
look to French onion soup that's almost as important as the actual soup.
Yeah.
It's got to look like he's gonna do it. I know what he's gonna do.
Oh, you know. I mean,
You gotta
smell of
complete
the
it. You
sherry.
can't
Yeah,
like
the
half.
mess on the
half-
edge.
Yeah, you can't do it half baked.
Hey, now, we're going to full bake
Oh
these.
yeah, there we go.
Throw
Look at
a
this.
couple croutons
Really
on the
important
top,
right here.
Do it.
Right? Without submerging like that. That guy went for a dip. I'm going to change him out. I did not. He just ate. You got to wait an hour.
Hey, I don't
Boom.
blame him. He wanted to get in there in that soup.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, Jeff.
I got to do 2 sheets.
Oh,
to.
it's
You
got
have
to
to.
have
I
a
gotta do
thick
two.
layer of cheese
You
on
need it.
there.
Right on there.
It's a must.
So
What kind of cheese?
Anybody want to guess?
Gruyere.
Gruyere, of course. You could substitute nothing. Gruyere is available everywhere, right? The deli sliced or the sheets of it that come pre-shingled, if you will. Totally worth it because it's going to make your life easier and an even melt, which, let's check on these, huh?
Where do you put it? What kind of oven? Why?
So we are going to put it on a sheet pan.
Yeah.
As many bowls as you need at a time. Don't just loosey-goosey this to the oven, okay? You want to keep it on a sheet. I'm going to need another rag. Give me that, man. I thought I was going to be all swollen showing off for you guys, but this is a two-handed job. You'll see why. Oh, meh, get, oh.
Bon Dieu.
That is it. That's the promise.
Yeah.
Look at that. I'm just going to.
Wow.
Look at that. Look at that. Maybe, I don't want to, man, there's no more room. I have all the
Here.
pots going. Thank you very much, Katie. But look at this. This is what we wanted.
Mon Dieu. That smell.
That's Italian. No, kidding.
That's amore.
That's amore.
This is a soup that makes you want to,
Smile.
well, yeah, and pull out a fork, too. You know what I mean?
Yes, you got to get in there. And
Yeah.
Again,
here's you guys.
Cote de Rhone, red wine, Burgundy, must
yeah.
have.
Done, right?
I
All
like that
day.
you're our sommelier, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I got
Let us
Cote de Rhone
know.
with this. I like to try the broth
Simple.
first.
I mean,
Yeah, I like exactly what I did. I tried to get the cheese, the bread, the broth.
I feel like
you know.
I'm at Cafe Fleur, sitting there in Saint Germain, watching the world go by.
I'm going to rock out my celery, carrots, onion for the flavor base of my chicken soup. I'm ready with my thyme bundle. You know why? Because we don't have time for thyme. These little leaves will add their thymy goodness without having to add the little stickage action in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this in. Look at my vegetables, my flavor bases, onions, carrots, celery, and garlic with a little salt and crushed red pepper are doing their sweaty goodness. So they've done their sweaty, lovely workout thing, given out their lovely aromas, and they've softened a lot, and now they're ready for chicken. I have chicken thighs and legs here. I'm a dark meat kind of girl. Go ahead and get all that in there. Now, we've got chicken in there. Give this a little sprinky-dink of salt, but what are we missing in our soup? The soupy part. So let's add some water. So I'm a water kind of girl here, and we're really developing beautiful, lovely flavors. So we're gonna put this back on the burner, BTB, bring to boil, and reduce to simmer for about 30 minutes or so before we move on to our super secret flavor weapons of our soup. That's gonna make it our special chicken soup. I've got my aromatics, my bay leaves. We're gonna add 2 of those babies. All right, there we go. All right, now we're gonna put that on high, and as I said, BTB, bring to boil, reduce to simmer. I BTB'd, brought to boil, RTS, reduced to simmer, and now I'm STSing, skimming the scum. So now it's time for my super secret flavor weapons. So I'm gonna add some lemon and a little bit of cinnamon and nutmeg. I know, not normally what you'd see in a chicken soup. Lemon juice, lemons right in the pot. It will give us a lemony chicken freshness. A little bit of cinnamon, so lemony freshness and a little bit of warm goodness here, warm cinnamony. And, you know, I'm not a super fan of nutmeg, but a couple grates of that is just a really lovely, super secret thing. So a little bit of nutmeg, a little bit of salt. Yeah. Now it's gonna taste even more better. Now, I have my pasta water going, so I'm gonna grab my noodles. We're gonna salt this a lot, I know. I've got a pound of little shells here. You know, you can use any shape that you want, and I'm gonna throw some beans in there. I like something starchy in my soup to help, like, you know, stick everything together. So I have chicken legs and thighs. I like the dark meat. It's a little richer, a little more flavor, definitely more fat. All good stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and give my hands a rinse. All right, let's get my lemons, my aromatics, bay leaves and stuff taken out of here. All right, so let's get our chicken back in there. My white beans, pasta, let's drain this. And I'm keeping it on the side and just putting it in the bottom of my bowl and ladling hot soup over it later on. So this prevents my noodles, whatever shape I want to use, from overcooking. Perfectly tender and delicious and still nice and toothsome and not big and swollen. All right, I'm grabbing a little cilantro, my last super secret flavor weapon. First of all, it's beautifully green, bright and fresh, and you know, I love to finish soup like that. Let's go ahead, put a little pasta in the bottom of our soup. That cinnamon and lemon and everything, they smell so good and really add just a beautiful flavor profile to this soup. That cilantro hits the soup and I can smell it. Got my spoon, but you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and do a dunk. That crunchy salt, I love it, and really olive oily.
It's Geoffrey and my 40th wedding anniversary. I can't believe it. And I thought for a main course, it'd be really nice to have Italian wedding soup. Big steaming bowls of soup with fresh spinach and chicken meatballs. And since it involves chicken, we do know about Geoffrey and chicken. So the first thing I'm gonna do is make the meatballs. So I have 6 ounces of ground chicken and 4 ounces of ground chicken sausage. It's actually, the sausage is out of the casings. It's a great combination. The chicken's sort of sweet and the sausage is a little spicy. The great thing about these meatballs is they're baked. I don't have to stand there and roll them around in butter and oil. I just make them all, put them in the oven, and they're done. And they have so much flavor. Okay, so I need about 1/3 cup of fresh breadcrumbs. I'm gonna just cut off the crusts. Give it a buzz of the food processor. So that's 1/3 cup of fresh breadcrumbs. This is actually better than dry breadcrumbs that you can get in a can because it'll make the meatballs softer. That should do it. Okay, next, garlic. It's 1 big clove of garlic. Italian wedding soup is this wonderful chicken stock-based soup. It's just delicious. I think Geoffrey will love it. Fantastic. Right into the meatballs. And I love fresh herbs, so I'm gonna put in 2 tablespoons of fresh parsley. Just chop it up. I actually use parsley in a lot. I think it's got a great flavor. What I don't use it for is garnish. Okay, that's about 1.5 tablespoons. Okay, next for some good cheese. So I want 2 tablespoons of pecorino, which is a really sharp Italian cheese. I'm just gonna grate it. And the next one is just to combine the flavors and get the best of all of it, is 2 tablespoons of grated Parmesan. I use Reggiano, but if you want to use Grana Padano, it's not technically Parmesan, but it has just the same flavor. And it's quite a bit less expensive. Okay, that should do it. This is going to be good. Chicken, sausage, Parmesan. How bad can these meatballs be? Okay, now I'm just going to add an egg to bind it all together. Beat it up, pour it in. 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. Just give it a stir. Okay, I'm ready to make the meatballs. Just around a teaspoon, and that makes the perfect size meatball. And I'm gonna bake these. Nobody needs to stand over the stove and fry them. How great is that? Geoffrey's got so much work to do. He's stuck at his desk, but at least I know I'll have a good dinner tonight. Okay, these are gonna go into the oven, 350 degrees for 30 minutes, and I'm gonna start working on the soup. So while the meatballs bake, I'm gonna make the soup, make the stock. So I always like to have lots of flavor in the stock, and the best way to get that is to just saute some vegetables first before I put the chicken stock in. Just about half a cup of chopped onion. I have to say, Geoffrey and I like very quiet birthdays and anniversaries. We like to keep it very low key. A nice dinner is exactly what we like. And neither of us like surprises. So I've got a little olive oil in here. Let's do some chopped onion and some chopped celery. One stalk. Some tears from the onions, all part of the charm, and one carrot. People always say, what's the secret to a good marriage? I don't know, I would hate to have a marriage where you have to work at it. That's what you're supposed to do. We just have a good time together. He wants me to be happy, I want him to be happy. It's so simple. Okay, one very large carrot. Just give that a stir. That's going to cook for about 8 to 10 minutes until the vegetables are really tender and flavorful. Then I'm going to finish the soup and make some Campari spritzers so we can really celebrate our anniversary. So I've got the vegetables have been sauteing and they're really soft and flavorful. Now I'm going to add 5 cups of chicken stock. So this is the base for the Italian wedding soup. And later I'm going to put the chicken meatballs in. I really do like homemade chicken stock. If you don't have it, you can use good canned chicken stock, but this makes all the difference in the world. And I like to add 1/4 cup of white wine. Just gives it real depth of flavor. The alcohol's going to burn off. Geoffrey's working so hard, but he's the smartest guy I know. I think that's why it works so well, because I'm the practical one in the relationship. This smells wonderful. Now what I'm going to do is add 1/2 cup of pasta. Just a very small pasta, tubatini or stars. And what that's going to do is it's going to puff up in this, but it's also going to thicken it. The starch in the pasta. It's going to thicken the soup. Just let that cook for about 6 to 8 minutes. Okay, the next part of this Italian wedding soup is putting the meatballs in. So they've come out of the oven. I'm just going to put them right in. I love this. It's a really hearty soup. It's really great for a main course. Fantastic. So the chicken and sausage and Parmesan right in. Okay, next thing is a little fresh dill. I love the fresh herb flavor. You know, the soup has a very complex flavor, but there's nothing you can't find in a grocery store. So a handful of fresh dill. Just stir it in. And then the last ingredient is spinach, and you're not going to believe how much it is, but it's going to cook down in a second. So I've got a big pile of baby spinach leaves, all washed and clean. It's going to look like it's going to fill the pot, but in 2 seconds, it's going to cook down into the soup. So isn't this interesting? It's chicken meatballs and fresh spinach and all kinds of vegetables. 2 bowls of Italian wedding soup coming up. This is my idea of a perfect anniversary. Quiet, cozy, just the 2 of us. A little bit of fresh Parmesan on top. Give it a little extra bite. It is Italian after all. Now, who wouldn't want this for dinner?
I've started by browning a bunch of ground beef, the star ingredient, and now basically everything goes in. I've got some minced garlic, and I'll add a good amount of tomato paste. I love the tomato paste. It gives it just a nice, rich, tangy flavor. And I'm going to stir the tomato paste in just to give it a chance to start frying a bit. Of course, Lad loves the soup, so that checks a very important box for me. The tomato paste is stirred in, so I'm going to add a can of diced tomatoes with the juice. And this is part of what makes it a quick and easy version of hamburger soup. I'm gonna add a bag of potatoes O'Brien, which is basically potatoes, peppers, and onions. It's a really great shortcut ingredient, and once the soup is all done, you would never know you have shortcut potatoes in there. Yum, yum, it's looking good already. It kind of looks like a thick chili at this point, which, by the way, would be delicious. But I'm gonna turn it into soup by adding a bunch of beef stock. This is just out of the carton. And then some sliced carrots, and the carrots are sliced pretty thin, so it won't take long for them to cook. So I've kind of figured out ways to turn this hamburger soup into a really, really quick proposition. So now I need to add some seasonings. Got some oregano, yum, yum, yum. And I like to give it a little bit of spice with some cayenne pepper, salt and pepper, of course. And then it all gets stirred together, and it is already looking absolutely fantastic. But I need to bring this to a boil, and then I'm gonna put the lid on, lower the heat, and simmer it for about 10 minutes. Right, this Speedy hamburger soup is done, and boy, does it look incredible. It is so, so thick. So I'm gonna get it served into a bowl. If you like a little more brothy soupiness, you could add more of the beef stock. So to garnish, I'm gonna add some minced parsley. And to me, this is the perfect thing to serve on a weeknight in the fall or winter with a loaf of crusty bread. And this is definitely a standby soup. I love it. Ooh. Mmm. Never lets me down.
Can't make good chicken noodle soup without good homemade chicken stock. Fortunately, I had 2 quarts in the freezer. So I'm gonna heat that up. I'm gonna put in 1 cup of chopped carrots right into the chicken stock. 1 cup of chopped celery. And 2 cups of noodles. I just use regular egg noodles. You can probably use any kind of pasta, but this chicken noodle soup has to be egg noodles. 2 cups, right in. Give it a big stir. This is gonna cook for about 10 minutes. And actually it's nice because the starch in the noodles is gonna get into the soup. It gives it a little body, which is great. And then I need to add chicken. And I just cook the chicken exactly the way I usually do. I take 2 chicken breasts, bone in, skin on, put them on a sheet pan, rub them with olive oil, sprinkle with lots of salt and pepper, and roast them at 350 degrees for 35 to 40 minutes. I mean, that's it. So I'm just gonna take the skin off, and then with a knife, just cut around the bone. So all I really want is the meat. You can really just peel it off with your hands if you want to. And because you're gonna dice it or shred it, it doesn't really matter what it looks like. You just need large pieces of chicken. It's amazing how the olive oil and the skin and the seasoning really gets into the chicken, and it keeps it absolutely delicious. So much more flavorful than boiling it, which I think takes all the flavor out of the chicken. And you can either shred it like this or you can dice it, but this time I feel like dicing it. So just nice big bite-sized pieces. This looks so wonderful. It's so moist this way. And that's what I want from Miguel's chicken noodle soup. You can use dark meat for this, but it's sort of more traditional to use white meat. Big dice. Perfect. Okay, let's see how the soup is doing. It's just 10 minutes. It smells fantastic. Oh, how good does that look? Wow. Okay, chicken in, little parsley, and it's almost done. So if you've got chicken stock in the refrigerator or the freezer, this is really fast to do. 1/4 cup of parsley. It's always good to have a fresh herb in there. Just really brings out the flavor. Makes the whole thing taste really fresh. You can do dill if you like dill, whatever you have around. Nothing too strong though, not rosemary. Into the pot. This is a really good chicken noodle soup. So depending on how salty or peppery the stock is, I'm gonna add some more seasoning, but first I have to taste it. This is a tough job. Oh, it's so good. It's got so much chicken flavor. It needs a little more salt. The strange thing about chicken soup is it can taste like dirty dishwater or it can taste like really delicious chicken soup, and salt is the only ingredient that's different. Okay, one more taste. That is so delicious.
Hi guys, it's Ree Drummond, the Pioneer Woman, and today you are going to make my lasagna soup, and I promise you won't regret it. It is so delicious. I'm gonna start by breaking up some lasagna noodles, and I'm gonna put them into a bowl, and then they'll be ready to drop in the boiling water later. I've already got boiling water going. There's nothing worse than having a soup or sauce all ready, and then you realize, oh no, I've got to bring a big pot of water to a boil. I'm just breaking them into random pieces so you don't have to follow any sort of size. Got those on standby. And now I'm going to slice up an onion. You just cut off the tip and then peel off the outer layer. This soup is one of my family's favorite things right now. It's kind of a mashup of lasagna and soup, which makes perfect sense. And I love things like that, where you take something like lasagna that you've made for years and years, and then you turn it into a completely different dish. So once you cut the onion in half, just lay it on its side, and you can cut nice half-moon slices, I call them. This is so much easier than slicing a whole onion because you have this flat surface that kind of stabilizes the onion. I don't have the fanciest knife skills out there, so I need all the little tricks I can get. Okay, I've just got the little bit. So the onion is sliced. I'm separating the onion slices. Now, of course, any lasagna recipe has to have plenty of garlic. So I've got 4 cloves. And the easiest way to break open a clove of garlic is just to take the knife, smash it with your hand. You can sort of think about the things that you're frustrated about this week. Whack a clove of garlic. Everything instantly seems better. You know, in the supermarkets, they sell bags of peeled garlic now, which is really a time saver if you use a lot of garlic in your cooking. I do confess to buying bags of peeled garlic cloves. So I'm actually a little rusty right now peeling garlic. I forgot how. All right, I'm just mincing the garlic, and it just kind of takes gathering it up, holding the knife, and just kind of rocking it back and forth. This is one of those things you can't rush. The more you mince it up, the more garlic flavor is going to wind up in your dish. Are you having fun yet? I am. Thank you for cooking with me. It's always more fun to cook with a friend than by yourself. Okay, the garlic is nice and minced. So I've also got a couple of fresh herbs, and they're 2 of my favorites, oregano and thyme. And I'll just strip the leaves off of the stalk. And I'll do the same thing to the thyme. Just hold the top and then take your fingers and just peel off the leaves. They come off so easily. Sometimes thyme is so delicate that you can actually just chop up the stalk along with the leaves. So I'm gonna mince these up together. There is no better smell than fresh herbs. I live in Oklahoma and we have 4 seasons. So when I don't have herbs growing in my garden, I'm just not as happy an individual. Okay, got all this ready. Now I'm gonna get over to the pot and get things going. I'm gonna add plenty of olive oil, and I've already got the big Dutch oven preheated. I just added about 1/4 cup of olive oil, and then you wanna grab these beautiful sliced onions. Whoop. And this is why I wear floral or otherwise patterned tops. So if I slosh a little olive oil on myself, nobody will know. And then the garlic goes in. It smells amazing already. It's crazy how quickly that happens. And then all of these beautiful fresh herbs go in. Oh, I'm gonna grab a spoon. So you just want to stir the onions and garlic with the herbs and get those softened. Oh, just glorious. This is a great way to start any soup recipe at all. So these are getting off to a good start. So I'm gonna add the meat. I'm doing a mixture of ground beef and then just some regular pork sausage. You can use Italian sausage. This is one of those recipes you can just open your fridge. If you have some ground beef that you need to use, if you have a whole bunch of sausage, you can just omit the beef entirely, do a sausage version. You could even do ground turkey. All of the recipes that I make are incredibly versatile, meaning if I'm out of something, I can swap in so many other things. I think that is the case because I live in the country and I've learned the hard way that if I run out of something I need, I'm out. I can't take the time to drive to town and go to the store. Okay, so you want to crumble up the meat, just kind of break it up with a spoon. And this is a good time to add some kosher salt. And this is not the last time you're going to see me grab the black pepper. I'm a big black pepper fan. And then it's just about stirring and cooking this until both meats are totally browned. So get up to that point, and then we'll keep moving forward. All right, the meat is totally browned. It took about 5 minutes. This hot Dutch oven, it doesn't take long. Now, depending on how lean your ground beef is, it's always a good idea to drain any excess grease. So I just kind of tilt it. The goal for me is never completely removing all the grease because there is flavor in there. I just kind of get out the big pools of it, but you want to leave a little bit behind because it does add to the overall flavor of the soup. I think that's good enough. And there's still a little bit in the bottom of the pot, and that's what you want. So now that the onions and garlic and meat are cooked, I'm going to start adding the other soup ingredients. Add some tomato paste. And you want to stir the tomato paste in and let it really get against the bottom of this hot pan. It almost kind of fries the paste and deepens the flavor. It kind of wakes it up in a way. And you just want to stir it around for about 30 seconds before you start adding the other things. And by other things, I've got a little carafe of the hard stuff. It's actually not hard stuff, it's just white wine. You can use red wine, white wine, whatever you have handy. And it's good to use something that you already have open. You don't have to use fine wine when it comes to making a soup like this. Oh, the smell of wine wafting out of a pan. I think that's one of the smells in heaven. Along with citrus, lavender. I have a list of smells in heaven. Okay, so now that the wine has partially evaporated, you want to add a can of whole tomatoes, and you can do diced tomatoes, stewed tomatoes. You can even do tomato puree if you're somebody that doesn't like to have big chunks of tomatoes. When I make my regular lasagna recipe, it always has big tomato chunks. So I kind of wanted the soup to be similar. Now, some fancy chefs get in there and squeeze the tomatoes with their hands. I'm just gonna use the spoon. Every time I try to squeeze a tomato with my hand, it either squirts me in the eye or winds up in my hair, and I'm trying to look nice for you guys, so. I'm just gonna let the spoon do all the squishing and mushing. I really love this soup. I have 2 teenage boys still at home. My daughters are out of the house now. So the meaty, hearty, really home-style recipes are really front and center in my house these days. Both of my boys play football, So having a soup like this ready to go when they get home from practice is just my favorite category of things to cook for them. Okay, all the tomatoes are broken up. So the liquid for the soup comes next. I'm using 4 cups of vegetable stock. You can use beef stock, beef broth, chicken stock, chicken broth. Really, you just kind of want a flavorful liquid of any kind. You could even use bouillon cubes and dissolve them in some boiling water. In a pinch, I've done that for sure. Give it a stir, and then I've got some fresh parsley. I already pulled some of the leaves off of some parsley stems, and there's nothing complicated about this. I am not precise when it comes to picking the leaves off of herbs. I don't have time to be precise in my life. If there's a little stem in there, it's not gonna matter. And then with parsley, I like to chop it up, I call it kind of halfway, because I still like to see those pretty little flat leaves. You don't have to mince the heck out of it. All right, that looks fantastic. Now I'm gonna save some of this parsley for another little component I'm gonna make in a minute. But I'll add some of it to the soup. Give it a quick stir. And then can't forget about my lasagna noodles. This is a good time to pour those in. All right, you need to bring the soup to a boil and then reduce it to a simmer and let it cook for 20 minutes. You need to cook the lasagna noodles, so take care of that, and I'll see you back here in a bit. So how does your soup look? Mine looks pretty darn good. It's been simmering away. It got a little bit richer in color. Looking great. I drained the lasagna noodles. You want to do that about 10 minutes in. You don't want to cook them all the way because they're eventually going to go back into the soup, and you do not want a mushy lasagna noodle. I'm going to wait on that because I'm going to make a really delicious ricotta mixture. It starts with ricotta cheese, and you want to add some grated Parmesan and the rest of the minced parsley that you cut up. Add that in, and then add some salt and pepper. This is very, very simple. In regular lasagna, you would make a ricotta mixture to put in between the layers of sauce and noodles. I'm going to turn these into little dollops. I kind of call them ricotta dumplings that go on top of the soup once you dish it up. Oh, and this happens all the time. I totally forgot to add the basil. No harm, no foul. It's not too late. I'm going to pick off a few leaves, talk about an herb that I love. Oh, gosh, there's no replacement for basil. It is delicious. And this is one of the herbs that is the hardest for me to get in the wintertime in Oklahoma. So for that reason, in the summertime, I really go crazy. I plant so much basil to the point that it's just coming out of my ears, basically. Now, you can just kind of roughly chop the basil. I just rolled it up in a really rough ball. And I don't know if I can even call this chiffonade. I just kind of cut it into strips. And then you want to add the basil to the ricotta mixture. And now I can stir it up, now that I've added everything. Sometimes when you forget an ingredient, it's no big deal, like with the basil. Even if you forgot it in the ricotta, you could sprinkle it over the soup. The worst thing to forget when you're in the kitchen is some kind of a baking ingredient. I have a chocolate sheet cake that I make, and even after all these years of making it from memory, every now and then I'll forget to add the baking soda. And I don't realize it until I pull the cake out of the oven, and it's basically a little flat chocolate pancake instead of a cake. Those are some very dark days. All right, so it's good to have the ricotta mixture all ready to go. I'm gonna get back over here to this beautiful soup, and I'm gonna turn the heat way, way down. Now, I cannot leave well enough alone. This soup would be delicious as it is now, but if you add a little bit of heavy cream to the pot, it doesn't turn it into a creamy tomato soup at all. It just kind of takes the edge off of all of that tomato and all of that richness. Trust me, It is really good with the cream. If you want to omit the cream, that's totally fine too. Again, this is one of those recipes that's totally versatile. You can add a bunch of cream if you want. You can add a bunch of Parmesan to the soup. You can keep the Parmesan limited to the ricotta mixture. There are no rules in my kitchen. Hopefully it's the same in your kitchen. Now it's time for the broken up lasagna noodles. Those just go right in. And they're just under the al dente stage. You want to have a little bit of room for forgiveness because when the noodles simmer in the soup, they will keep cooking. How beautiful does this look? Now I'm actually going to get a few more leaves of basil just because I feel like it. This time you can just tear them right in. No need to use the knife. Sometimes when I do things like this, I tell myself I'm being rustic, but I'm actually just being lazy. I don't want to chop it up. How pretty does this look? All right, now just wait till you see it in the bowl. Okay. When you serve up this soup, you want to have a bowl that has somewhat of a wide rim so you can see all the gorgeousness. And I really like food to look pretty, so I make sure I get chunks of tomato, plenty of basil, of course, lasagna. I'm a lifelong pasta lover. Okie doke. And then I'm gonna add a little bit more basil to the top. You can keep adding basil or not. I don't think you can ever have too much. And then I'm going to grab a little spoon, and this is how the ricotta mixture plays out. You just scoop a little bit of a round dollop and drop it right on. You can just do one, or you can do two. Get on there. Or, if you're me, you can do three. If one is good, three is better. That's my motto. And then as this sits in the soup, it's just going to get creamier and creamier. Look at this. I have a little extra Parmesan left in the measuring cup. A little more basil. I told you I can't stop. Look at this soup, guys. I've been smelling it, and now I cannot wait to taste it. Oh. It is even more delicious than the last time I made it. It's so rich and meaty and hearty. Honestly, that cream really sends it over the top. It just kind of adds a richness. I taste the basil. I got a little piece of the ricotta. It's perfect. Lasagna soup.
A hearty, warming puree of roasted acorn squash, shallots and herbs, and a swirl of heavy cream, topped with a peppery pistachio Parmesan crostini. Each bowlful looks great, and it even tastes better. I've got some acorn squash in the oven, kind of roasting down. I'm going to start some shallots with a little bit of this olive oil, kind of caramelize these bad boys up. It's going to be the basis of the soup. Okay, so I'm going to get these down. Pan was super hot, so I didn't put my butter in yet, but let me throw a little butter in now. Some great flavor out of this. Okay, we'll just reduce the heat a little bit. The Dutch oven was waiting for me to hurry up. And let them kind of go low and slow. I really want to pull some of the flavor out of this and let these caramelize. Let's take a look at that squash. That's what I'm talking about. Look at those bad boys all roasted up. The garlic in there, even a little bit of moisture inside of it, that's all flavor. My shallots look really nice in here. Now it's time to deglaze the bottom of this pan. We'll grab a little chicken stock for that. So that's what we've got. We're letting the acorn squash kind of cool down before we scoop it out, get it into here. I'm going to deglaze with the chicken stock. This will be the base of the soup. Outrageous. I think it'd just be great like this, but we're making this dynamite soup, and I got some shallots and chicken stock doing time over here, simmering nicely. And inside of the squash in the cavities, I put some shallots, so that roasted with them. Those are going to go right into the soup. Actually, everybody's going to go into the soup. Let me see. I've got the shallots, some roasted garlic. That'll be really nice. And then the squash meat itself goes right in. That'll make it nice and creamy. Just a touch of cayenne. Not too much, about 1/4 teaspoon. And about the same on the white pepper. A little dried sage, we all know what that's like, the rubbed sage, okay? And then some savory, which you don't hear a lot of times. And this has kind of got like a little lemony, almost dried arugula idea, but a little bit more citrusy, okay? Some Worcestershire sauce, a tablespoon of that in. Okay, so let me just give this a quick little buzz. These immersion blenders, I love them because you don't have to take all the soup out and hit it into the blender right now and then pour it back in because I want to continue cooking. So I just sit here and do this, kind of get all the big pieces ground up, let it continue to simmer. Over to this acorn squash soup. Little olive oil goes in, some grated Parmesan cheese, just a touch. Adds a little bit of salt to that, but this was seasoned really nice. So we'll stir that around. Okay, now look at these crostinis I got sitting over here. Chopped up some pistachios, hit a little Parmesan cheese, buttered up that baguette, popped it in the oven, and look at that. This is not your everyday soup, but tell me that's not gonna be nice and hearty on a cold winter day, especially during the holidays. I'll just put a little, you see here, I'll use my spoon so it doesn't just kind of clump right in the middle. There we go. I like that one. Float that bad boy right on top of there. And now let me get a taste of that. The roasted acorn, the garlic was roasted with it, the shallots, the chicken stock, the savory.
I decided I'm going to make Robin John one of my all-time favorite soups, lentil vegetable soup. It's a really rich, hearty soup with lots of chunky vegetables. First thing you need is 4 cups of chopped onions. That's about 3 large onions. Okay, next thing is leeks. So onions and leeks are milder than onions. About 4 cups of leeks, right into the pot. Next thing is garlic. 3 cloves of garlic, just roughly chopped. Okay, that's about 1 tablespoon of garlic, right into the pot. Now lots of seasonings. 1 tablespoon of salt. I use kosher salt. 1/2 tablespoon, which is 1½ teaspoons of pepper. And lots of flavor with fresh thyme, about 1 tablespoon. Just run your finger down the stem, and the leaves come off. They're tiny, so there's really no need to chop them. Love the smell of fresh thyme, but it's strong. Just about 1 tablespoon. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of cumin. Cumin's used in a lot of ethnic cooking, Middle Eastern, Indian. It's not something I use often, but in the lentil soup, it really sort of brings out that earthy flavor of the lentils, which is great. Give it a big stir. And just cook that over medium heat for about 20 minutes until the leeks and the onions are just beautiful and tender and not browned. It's going to make one big pot of soup. Next is lentils. Can't make lentil soup without lentils. I like to use the French green lentils. You can find them in specialty food stores. I just think they have better texture. So I need 2 cups of lentils. Just cover them with boiling water and let them soak for about 15 minutes. And then they'll cook faster in the soup. Okay, everything into the pot. 3 cups of carrots. 3 cups of celery. This is one big chunky pot of soup. I'm just going to cook that at medium heat for about 10 minutes until the vegetables start to become tender. 3 quarts of chicken stock. This makes a lot of soup. If you want to make this vegetarian, you can always use vegetable stock, but I really like the depth of flavor that comes from chicken stock. 1/4 cup of tomato paste. I actually love these tubes. It's a great way to store it in the fridge, what's left over. Just squeeze it in, give it a big stir, and mix the lentils. Just gonna drain the lentils. They're softened now from being in the boiling water. And they're gonna go right in. French lentils are really firmer than regular lentils, just have a much better flavor and better texture. This is really the most flavorful lentil soup. The guys are gonna love it. Bring it to a boil and then lower the heat and simmer it for about an hour, uncovered, so it gets really thick and absolutely delicious. is actually quite a lunch. A hearty, delicious lentil vegetable soup drizzled with olive oil and sprinkled with lots of Parmesan cheese.
Today I'm making some classic pub food, a little meal of my favorite things. Some soup with some blistering tomatoes and melted mozzarella cheese oozing over the top, and with it, a hamburger. Now I start by blistering some fresh tomatoes in a little bit of canola oil. So I cut an X in the bottom and I core the top. That allows air to pass from one end of the tomato to the other, which means while I'm blistering them, the skin is gonna come off a little bit, get charred, and give my soup this added intensity. I'm gonna use my trusty cast iron skillet, and I'm gonna get it roaring hot. I think food is a lot about the weather. If it's cold outside or it's rainy, it makes me wanna make a soup that feels like I'm putting on a jacket. So I can hear that crackling sound of the skin. Let's give them a little flip and see what's happening. Now, the really cool thing about this technique is it stems from watching my mom char peppers on the burner. She would just throw a pepper right on the burner, turn it up high, char the whole thing, and that wonderful smoky smell of the skin charring was so appetizing to me. This soup recreates that feeling, but chars the skin of tomatoes instead. So once the skin starts to come off the tomatoes and peel away and char a little bit, that's when I add 1 tablespoon of regular sugar. Tomatoes that are fresh like this have more acidity, but they need that little secretarial assistance, that pinch of sugar for added sweetness. Now to cook them and finish cooking them until they're tender, I wanna add a little bit of liquid, but a liquid that's dry, that's gonna really add flavor. 1/4 cup of dry vermouth. Now when adding this, I just shut off the heat so I don't have to worry about a 5-alarm fire. Once I've added the vermouth, I'll just let it simmer on the stove over a nice low heat and just kind of let those tomatoes get nice and soft and tender. I always like to add that fresh element that really takes the soup the extra distance. So I peeled a few shallots. One of my favorite vegetables because they just have a natural sweetness, but they also bring that little oniony bite to the table. They're really versatile. I have to tell you, I grew up in Midtown Manhattan, and on the corner, there was a pub. It was called Mulligan's. It was kind of dark and scary and gloomy, and it had all these amazing smells. Brisket cooking, stroganoff, braised chicken. Scary? Yes. Exciting? Yes. To a young girl walking by, something strangely enticing about the pub. And I think that's where I developed my association with pub food, the weather, a certain mood. So with the 3 shallots, I'm chopping up 10 cloves of garlic. And I'll just take that, swoop it right up, and go into the pot. Add a pinch of chili flakes, a 1/4 teaspoon, and that's just enough to give it a little kick without being spicy. And a tablespoon of oregano. A pinch of white pepper, and a pinch of salt. Just to start drawing the water out of those garlic slices and shallots. A little stir with a wooden spoon, the shallots, the garlic, take a little nose bath, take a minute to smell the flowers and enjoy this. Once this starts to kind of caramelize and cook down, get a little translucent and a little brown, that's when I want to add the canned tomatoes. And I just add 1 can of peeled tomatoes. So the peeled tomatoes are cooked already, so they have a developed sweetness from being cooked that the fresh don't have. And that's why I like to use half and half. The acidic freshness of the fresh tomatoes, and then the more developed sweetness of the canned. But whenever I make a soup like this, there's never enough liquid. Let's add a little water. And to this, I'll add a little bit less sugar, 1 teaspoon. So now I have the 2 halves of my soup cooking. Now this is the kind of soup that I'm gonna put in a crock. After I've poured this delicious combination of fresh and canned tomatoes into my crock, I want there to be that extra layer of bone-warming comfort. So I always turn to a loaf of sourdough bread for that. And I just tear a piece of the sourdough bread, and it has to be enough so that it can perch on top and overlap just a little bit. I'm gonna just toast those pieces of bread at 375 degrees until they get all crunchy. I'll pop these in the oven dry. put any olive oil or butter or anything on that bread because I want to maximize the crispiness by making it dry. Because I want to top it with some fresh mozzarella that I will just break into small pieces. I like to use some fresh mozzarella for this. It has a really clean taste, which picks up on the fresh tomatoes we use in the base of our soup. And when the toast is ready and that soup goes in these ramekins, the cheese melts, we are gonna be transported to a Midtown pub for the ultimate comfort moment. So I've let these tomatoes cook down on the stove until they're nice and tender, and you can see that wonderful fresh tomato pulp there, combined with the charred aspect of the skin. Now, as you crush these, you'll get this wonderful liquid, the combination of the juice from the tomatoes, the cooking liquids, some seeds, some charred skin. This is an essential part of this soup's uniqueness. Once these are crushed up a little, we come to the other part of the soup, part 2, the sliced garlic, the shallots, and the canned tomatoes. And this is sort of like the roaring ocean, and this is the nice calm bay, and we're combining them. I'm only gonna puree the fresh tomatoes so that that wonderful charred taste goes all through the soup. Pop that in the blender. Now for that combining of the two parts. And this is really the final step in this soup. Just stir that right in there. And then taste it. I get that charred taste, that hint of chili flake. Sometimes I add just a touch of olive oil at the end just to round it out a little bit. Just pour that olive oil right in. Just a little bit. I kind of don't want it to get completely mixed in. Just leave it a little bit separated so it has that wonderful rich gloss on top. In the meantime, I have this wonderful charred tomato soup, that bread that I so delicately and precisely measured, and then that cheese perched on top. And now I'll just pop these in the oven under the broiler and let that cheese get all melty and fantastic.
I thought I'd make cream of wild mushroom soup to start because I can make the whole thing in advance and then just heat it up before dinner. I'm starting with 5 ounces of each of 3 mushrooms, portobello, cremini, and shiitake. If you can't find all 3, just pick one. Okay, nice clean mushrooms. So the next step is to separate the mushroom stems from the caps. That one's just caps. Take off the stems. I love the nutty, sort of meaty flavor of the wild mushrooms. I'm gonna chop the stems, just a rough chop because it's all gonna get cooked together. And then for more flavor, I'm gonna chop a carrot. Any kind of vegetables you have that will flavor the stock, it's a great way to use them up. Okay, so now I'm gonna heat the pan. A tablespoon of olive oil, tablespoon of butter. In go the onions, carrots, and the mushroom stems. These are just gonna cook for about 10 to 15 minutes until they get really nicely caramelized. And okay, big sprig of thyme, right in. Just gonna let that cook. I'm gonna get the rest of the soup ready. So the first thing I'm gonna use is a leek. I know you've seen it at the grocery store, but people don't use it so much here. So, you need some butter and oil again, just so that you get the best flavor of the butter and the best burning temperatures of the oil. Leeks go into the pan, and those are gonna saute for about 15 to 20 minutes until they have great flavor. In the meantime, I'm gonna pour some water into the stock. I need 6 cups of water. So it's just gonna simmer away for about 30 minutes until it gets a really rich mushroom stock. And then later, I'm gonna add it to the soup. Okay, so the next thing I want to do for the soup is cut up the mushroom caps, like 1/4 half-inch slices. Okay, that's it for the mushrooms. I'm just going to go into the pan with the leeks and the butter. Just give them a stir. And those are going to cook for about 10 minutes until all the moisture from the mushrooms gets out into the soup. Okay, now I'm going to strain the stock. Every last bit. Okay, so the next thing is I'm gonna add a little flour to these mushrooms. It's amazing how much they've cooked down. So I need 1/4 cup of flour. What this is gonna do is thicken the soup. Just add it right to the mushrooms. Cook it for a minute. Perfect. Now I need 1 cup of dry white wine, whatever you have in the refrigerator. Oh, that smells great. Okay, some fresh thyme leaves, about a teaspoon. Give it a stir. And now I'm gonna add the stock. Look how gorgeous that is, just from the stems. Okay, last ingredients. So 1 cup of cream. And then 1 cup of half and half. And 1/2 cup of fresh parsley. Give it a stir. So I'm gonna chill this, and then I'm gonna heat it up just before dinner.
This is fantastic.
Thank you.
Actually, this is the best soup I've ever had.
It is delicious.
Thank you.
Really? Gonna make this an outstanding baked potato soup. Oh yeah, bacon flavor in and chunks of bacon on top. And this is all in my tribute to Louisville. Getting the lardones of bacon out. Applewood smoked bacon. Use the kind you like. I just like the thick bacon. Off to the side. Heat's coming up nice. This time I'm actually gonna use a measuring cup. Not because it's necessary, just because I hate getting the flour out of my bling. About 1/2 cup of some flour into that bacon fat. Okay. Give this a little stir. We do want to make sure that we cook all that flour flavor out of there. Okay. Looks like I've got a good look there. Okay. Now in with some warm milk, nice and easy. See how that starts to foam up like that? Just want to get it nice and easy and not let that flour turn into dumplings. We're almost at the glory moment here. Taking this roasted potatoes, or these baked potatoes, not all the way baked yet. They're still a little firm, but that's fine because they're gonna cook out in this soup. Keeping the skins from going in, okay? There we go, get the rest of these in. Skins are off, nice and firm. Look at that, awesome. I think I'm gonna go with the white sharp cheddar into this. About 1 cup. Give this a stir. Also, salt, cracked black pepper, and yes, the bacon. The bacon shall go. I'm gonna put in about 2/3 of it and reserve the rest to be able to crumble up on top, along with some Parmesan cheese. So stir that in. Nice. All right. Give it a taste. Look at that. It's like a cross between fondue and baked potato at this point. One touch of some salt. I cooked the bacon, saved the bacon fat, the rendering's in there, add a little flour to it, hit in some chicken stock, hit in some milk, then come back in with some potato that I cooked down, then back in with the bacon that was there. That all comes together. Now I get to top it off. Some of the bacon we used, a little cheddar cheese. We're gonna get fancy on this one, folks. We'll hit sour cream. Chives over the top. So it doesn't look like a baked potato in a bowl. But this is gonna be easy because it's already pureed together. You don't have to sit there and mix it inside the potato skin. Look at that. The sour cream right at the end, that cool, a little bit of that acid coming through.
I'm gonna whip up the best tomato soup ever. I love this soup. My friend Kathy's been making this soup for years, and every time I try it, I like it a little bit more than the time before. Now I've got some diced onions sauteing in 3/4 of a stick of butter, and I'm gonna throw in 2 cans of diced tomatoes. This is a really easy soup, which makes it even better. And then a big old can of tomato juice. You can use flavored tomato juice, but I like to just do it plain. The beauty of the tomato flavor really shines through. All right, now I'll just give this a stir. Now I'm gonna add 2 or 3 tablespoons of sugar. It doesn't make the soup sweet, it just offsets the acidity of all the tomato products in here. 3. All right, stir that in. And then I'm gonna add plenty of freshly ground black pepper. I don't always use freshly ground black pepper because it takes time, energy, muscles to crank this grinder. But Kathy always used fresh ground black pepper in hers, and I do it the same as she does. All right, now I'll throw in 3 chicken bouillon cubes. They just add extra flavor to the soup. This soup is really big on flavor, and that's why I love it so much. Okay, now I'll stir it around. I'm gonna crank up the heat and let it come to a boil. Now I'm gonna add the special ingredient that makes this soup extra delicious, sherry. I'm gonna pour in about a cup. The sherry just gives it a wonderful flavor, and I add it after it boils because I don't want it to all disappear. That's a cup, and then I always do this because I can. And now I'm gonna add a 1.5 cups of heavy cream. Did I mention this soup is delicious? The cream just gives it a wonderful richness. You'll get that wonderful light pink color, so delicious. Now I'll stir this around. Oh my goodness, it smells so good. I smell that sherry already. Looks wonderful. Now I'm just gonna add some herbs. I'll start with about 1/4 cup of parsley, and I'll just give it a rough chop. This soup really doesn't need much help, but I love the little green flecks in the soup. It makes it really, really pretty. All right, now I'll throw that in. And then a few basil leaves. I'll just roll them in a bunch and then slice it. And then the basil goes in. I'm gonna do a little bit more freshly ground black pepper. You can't have too much in a soup like this. All right, now I'm just gonna give it a stir, and I hate to tell you, but that's it. The soup is that easy. Now it's just about keeping it warm, and then I'm gonna gobble it down for lunch later. I cannot wait.
I'm gonna make some split pea soup. Okay, 2 tablespoons of olive oil and a cup of onions, about 1 yellow onion. I always put the onions in first because they don't burn as easily as the garlic. Just mince the garlic finely. You know, there's no real secret to mincing. The only thing you want to do is hold the tip down with 1 finger and then move the handle up and down. Otherwise the knife jumps all over the board and it's hard to control. Okay, garlic's ready. Okay, now some flavors. Definitely need salt and pepper. 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I use kosher salt. 1 teaspoon of pepper. And 1/2 teaspoon of dried oregano. Oh, can't get that. And just stir that around. Let that cook with the onions. Wonder how TR is getting along with his assignment. Sounds like a secret mission. I think the onions and garlic are done. Hope TR likes this soup. It's nice to have something that's actually delicious and good for you. I'm gonna add 2 cups of carrots, chopped. I like big chunks. You want this to be really good, hearty, chunky soup. Okay. And a cup of diced potatoes. Nice thing about the potatoes is you don't have to peel them. You don't have to bother. Peel tastes just fine. It's gonna cook for a long time. And who wants to peel anything that small anyway? Okay, right into the pot. 8 cups of good chicken stock. This is homemade. If you can make it homemade, it's really worth it. But if not, you can find a good chicken stock in the grocery store. Okay. And now we're going to put in split peas. So I'm going to use about 1 pound of split peas, which is about 2 cups of split peas total. But I'm going to only put in about 1.5 cups to start with, so it makes a really thick soup. And then I put the rest in right about halfway through the cooking, so you get really chunky, just the bite of split peas also. So I'm just going to let this simmer for about 40 minutes. This is going to be a really nice soup to come home to. So split pea soup is half done, looking pretty good. So at this point, halfway through the cooking, I'm gonna add another half a cup of split peas. And what that does is, then the split peas that are already in there get really soft and make the soup really rich and thick. And then these split peas will cook a little less, so they'll have a little bit of bite to them, which is really good. I like both textures. Continue to let the soup simmer and just cook it for another 40 minutes. It's gonna be rich and delicious and so good for you.